Chairs No Waiting, episode number 802, Mayberry on Record. Two Chairs No Waiting is brought to you each week by the folks over at weaversdepartmentstore.com. Drop by over at Weavers and check out some of the great Mayberry items they have over there. They got all kinds of stuff now from the Mayberry Man, the series. That's right. If you want to go check out the series and get an actual DVD, there's a limited supply of DVDs. So you can actually own a DVD rather than just streaming it. There's also T-shirts and posters. And while you're over there, you might also want to check out the Mayberry postmarks note cards that you can write your own personal notes and send them out to people. Head over to weaversdepartmentstore.com and check out all that stuff. Two Chairs No Waiting is also brought to you by donations from listeners just like you. The executive producer of episode number 802 is Mark Ridgway, and the High Sheriff of Mayberry for episode 802 is Chris Merrill. Hello, everybody. I am Alan Newsom, the host of Two Chairs No Waiting. It's always fun to spend time in Mayberry with you. I say it every week, but I mean it. Here we are at episode 802, and we're still just going through the first season episodes of the Andy Griffith Show. I haven't even gotten through them after all this time. 16 years nearly of podcasting. I still don't have us through this whole thing. So let's get started on that. Then we got a few things to play for you, a few things I think you're really going to enjoy. And we also have some trivia. We got odd facts known by few, all about this episode. Hopefully you're going to enjoy yourself and we'll have some fun. All right, so I'm going to play a little background music. Oh, there we go. It's very quiet background music. Guys, we are talking about the episode Mayberry on Record. Now, Mayberry on Record was the 19th episode of the Andy Griffith Show filmed, and it was also the 19th aired episode, so that matches. So this is season 1, episode 19. Just a real quick summary is, Mr. Maxwell, do you remember him? Mr. Maxwell, record producer, making his own records, passing through Mayberry, and he records some of the local folks singing their talent. After Barney and Floyd and several of the other locals invest money in Mr. Maxwell's record company, Andy becomes very suspicious, and having convinced the town that they've been conned, Andy has to eat his own words at the end when Mr. Maxwell returns with the first dividend check. So you remember that. That's the basics of this particular episode. A great episode of the Andy Griffith Show. I should tell you guys that all this information, pretty much, that I'm going to be giving you can be found if you go over to the Mayberry Historical Society, located at mayberry.info. We've got all these episode guides, all kinds of information over there. That's it's like a Wikipedia for just Mayberry. So go over there and check it out. All right, so this episode starts off with Andy cleaning in the courthouse, and Barney comes walking in, and he has his check, I guess. Barney comes walking in with his paycheck for the month, and he is none too happy because he can't he can't keep all of his money, so he's upset about it. And he comes to Andy, or he starts talking to Andy about, here I am, Barney sucker, the sucker of the world, can't do it. So this is where that happens. So if you can't remember, a lot of times these episodes, I always feel like there's little clips like this that are hard to remember when it happened. But this is when that happened, with Barney complaining about not being able to keep any of the money. But they're all legitimate charges, Andy says. But Andy, he starts to kind of think about teaching Barney a lesson, because Barney starts talking about being an investor. He wants to invest his money to make more money so he doesn't, because of his taxes. Well, this is when that great story about Barney investing in the buffalo nickel. So Andy gets his buffalo nickel out because he's trying to teach Barney a lesson. He gets his buffalo nickel out and starts talking about being a rare buffalo nickel, and showing Barney which way the buffalo's facing, that it's facing the wrong way. And basically it doesn't take very long. Barney eventually offers to buy it from Andy, and he's very happy about buying it from Andy. But when he really investigates it, he realizes, hey, wait a minute, this rare buffalo nickel, my buffalo nickel's facing the same way. Andy goes, wait a minute, give me that rare buffalo nickel. You remember the whole thing. They're across the table from each other, the desk. And then Andy says, no, mine's facing that way. And Barney says, well, wait, okay, yeah. And he comes back, wait a minute, now mine's facing the same way. Darn you, Andy. So that's how the episode actually gets started. And following that, right after that, is when Ellie comes walking in with Mr. Maxwell. And Mr. Maxwell introduces himself as being, he's wanting to record some things, music. He's trying to make an album. And he comes in to record everything from there in town, to record artists and stuff. He pulls out his tape player, or his tape recorder, I guess. And so he starts to show Andy and Barney how it works, because they'd never seen one. And Barney actually talks in it. Now, keep this in mind as we go. After we run through this, we got some odd facts and interesting facts that you'll need to know. And we're going to come back to this part where Barney was talking on the tape recorder. Okay, so we'll talk about that. But okay, so then from there on, Andy says, I think I know some boys that might be pretty good for you. And so he brings them over to the barbershop. Mr. Maxwell sets up and records them right there in the barbershop as they're singing. And, everybody's coming in to listen to Andy and the boys singing. Now, these boys that are singing are not the Darling Boys, but we'll talk about them in Odd Facts Known by Few in a few minutes as well. But this group of men sing a couple of songs from Mr. Maxwell, and it's all really good. Turns out great. They listen to it on the tape, and everybody's happy. But they start to realize, no, wait a minute, Mr. Maxwell, you're going to make money on these things. And so they start talking about how much money they could make. And he says he could make 25 cents a record, so if he sells 100,000, he can make $25,000, so the guys there in the barbershop all decide, hey, wait a minute, why should you make money on our songs when we don't get to make money on them? So they basically end up talking Mr. Maxwell and letting them invest in his record company. Well, Andy was not involved in this, but he comes walking into the courthouse, and Barney's sitting there reading the stock pages because he's diversifying. He's in the business section of the newspaper. Wow. He is, he has decided that he's invested in this record company. Now he can look at Amalgamated Motors and whoever else he's talking about. I can't remember, but, Andy's very suspicious and thinks that Mr. Maxwell tricked the boys into giving their money to him, so that he could just skip town in the end and leave. Well, Andy voices his concern to about Mr. Maxwell to Ellie, and Ellie doesn't believe that's true, because she had met Mr. Maxwell as well. And so in this particular episode, it's one of the rare cases where we actually see Andy kind of being the one that's suspicious of everybody. Usually it's Barney, right? Barney would be the one all suspicious about it, but not this case. And Andy's kind of going with Ellie and going back and forth, and Opie comes into the drugstore, and Andy was eating a sundae, and he gives it to Opie. And anyway, Opie gets involved somehow in this argument between Ellie and Andy, and he said, I just came in to have some of your sundae. Anyway, Mr. Maxwell continues to record the people of the town. There's fiddle players, there's mouth harps playing. The country boys come back in, the same guys that were in the barbershop. They come back in and play for him some more. And during that conversation, our friend Leroy McNeese actually speaks up and says, well, we thank you for letting us invest in your record company, Mr. Maxwell. We appreciate it. We appreciate you letting us. That's like what he says. So Leroy, been on many Mayberry events with us at Mayberry events. Great person to be around. Wonderful person. And just to mention this, the guitar strap, or the strap that he's using for his instrument in that episode, he still has that. And we've actually seen it. He brought it on the Mayberry cruise one time, and he's brought it other places as well. Anyway, Mr. Maxwell continues to, he's putting up his recording gear, and Andy's just convinced he's going to steal the money from him. So he actually goes back to the boys at the barber shop and starts to tell them, yeah, he told me he's going to run off with your money. And Floyd's like, well, why would he have told you that? He wouldn't have told you that, Andy. So they don't believe it, and to the point where Barney's just going to go ahead and call Mr. Maxwell and see what's going on there. And when he calls, he finds out he already checked out of the hotel. Well, of course, Andy's feeling pretty good about himself at the time, and now all the guys are starting to believe Andy. So they end up in the courthouse, and they're looking for Mr. Maxwell, calling around, trying to figure out where he might have went. They've got their map out, which is important. We'll talk about later again. They got the map out, kind of mapping out where he might be and where he might have run off to. And Floyd and the boys are all like, what are you going to do to get our money back? Miss Ellie comes by and gets on to him saying, how do you know Mr. Maxwell didn't just go to do the work on the record and stuff? So nobody's wanting to hear that. So they all keep on planning and trying to figure out how they're going to take care of Mr. Maxwell when he comes back. Well, Miss Ellie, in the meantime, goes over to the drugstore. And while she's over there, just so happens Mr. Maxwell comes walking in saying he's looking for his investors. And she says, I just happen to know where they are. And so he has a check in his pocket, by the way. And so she takes Mr. Maxwell over to the courthouse. And so the boys, they're still plotting and ready to go out and get Mr. Maxwell. And Floyd and all the guys go out the front door, and Floyd spots Mr. Maxwell coming and panics. He shuts the door of the courthouse, starts telling him he's coming. Oh, he's coming. He's coming. Yeah, he's coming this way. Oh, and then Mr. Maxwell eventually comes in with Miss Ellie while the guys are all standing around trying to look as nonchalant as possible. like they weren't plotting to have him arrested. Mr. Maxwell comes in and makes the announcement that we've got our first dividend check. And he hands it to Andy to read. And then Andy starts to read it and tells how much money it was and is shocked that this has happened, that they've got the contract. And Mr. Maxwell hands them a check. And so all the boys are going to be involved now in getting this check, and they're all happy looking at it. And basically, Andy has to eat crow in this whole situation because he was wrong about Mr. Maxwell. And that's kind of how that ended. Now, if you may not have ever seen, if you don't watch the DVD versions, but at the end of the episode, Andy and Miss Ellie actually come walking back into the courthouse, and they literally have the record, Music from Mayberry, in their hand that they are showing and looking at. And when they come into the courthouse, they're looking at it as they come in the door, and it pans over to Barney, who is now not just reading the paper's business section. He's got the Wall Street Journal and a cigar in his mouth as he diversifies going forward from Mayberry. So that is our story. That is what happens in this episode. I know you guys know the episodes, and me just telling you the story, what good does that do? So I have some odd facts known by a few that I want to share with you about some of these episodes. So this is the first episode where we see Barney smoke, because he's seen smoking that cigar I just mentioned in the epilogue. But he's I don't know if it's actually smoking. He's got a cigar in his mouth, but I'm not sure it's smoking. But he definitely did have the cigar in his mouth. But so this is the first time we ever see him with a cigar where he's smoking. All right. So the actor who plays Mr. Maxwell is Hugh Marlowe. And wait a second here. Things are stuck on me. So his name is Hugh Marlowe, and he plays Mr. Maxwell. Now, you may have seen him in other things over the years because he was a very popular actor back in the time. So he appeared the next year as Roy Comstock It was next year after this episode. So I should have said at the beginning, this is episode number 19 of the Andy Griffith Show. It was actually, the original air date was February the 13th, 1961. The writers were Benedict Freeman and Jack Fenton Murray. And the director was Gene Reynolds. Now, the year after this episode was actually filmed, he appeared as Roy Comstock on the classic movie The Birdman of Alcatraz. And he also voiced the part of Ellery Queen on the CBS radio series The Adventures of Ellery Queen in the 1940s. Hugh Marlowe's most memorable role is that of Mr. Stevens in the sci-fi classic The Day the Earth Stood Still. I don't know if you've seen that, but it's definitely something worth seeing because he was one of the tenants, along with the main character of the movie, in the boarding house run by Francis Bavier in that movie, The Day the Earth Stood Still. So Aunt Bee ran the boarding house that Hugh Marlowe was staying in that movie. Billy Gray, you may not know who that is, but he played Eleanor Donahue's little brother on Father Knows Best. You remember that series? He had also a prominent role in The Day the Earth Stood Still. So Mr. Maxwell had Andy and the band signed to a record deal on a label named National Records. National Records. So National Records was an actual label that was created in 1945 in New York City by Albert Green. And the label signed primarily R&B and doo-wop groups and was eventually sold to Mercury in 1951. So National Records was a real record company, I guess. Real record place. It was real. Okay. All right, let's see what else have we got here. Let's see. The next up, I have information about remember I mentioned that the boys were trying to figure out where Mr. Maxwell had gone, and they were all planning in the courthouse. They were planning a way to figure out how to get him. Well, in that, they were using a sticky map, a map that had magnets on it. Okay, so it appears Andy finally got the magnetic map that he requested from Captain Baker in episode number 2, The Manhunt of this season. So he asked for it. I'd like to have one of those maps with little sticky buttons on it. Well, it looks like he finally got one because he had it in this episode. They had it and they were using it to figure out where Mr. Maxwell might have gone out of town, which way he might have taken. So it's a very similar map to that same one from previous episodes. Okay. I thought that was pretty cool. Pretty cool thing that they actually saw. All right. So now we're going to go into a little bit more detail about that record that Andy and Ellie walked into the courthouse carrying at the end of the episode. So in the epilogue, Andy comes walking in. He's got this whole thing right there in his hands. All right. So in the series or in the episode, it was called Music from Mayberry, and it featured, if you look at it, Andy Griffith's actually on the cover. So if you're watching the video version of this, there are screenshots that I took that you can see this record in. And I did a little bit of work to make it easier to see, kind of squared it up, but you can actually see Andy on the cover of that record. All right. So in reality, this record was called Andy Griffith Shouts the Blues and Old Timey Songs. That was the actual name of the record. It was from Capitol Records, by the way, and it came out in 1959. So this was a real album of Andy's that they had made. Basically, they changed the lettering and stuff on it to say Music from Mayberry. All right, so you can see the front of the album very briefly, but when they're looking at it, you can see the back a little better. It says Music from Mayberry. It's got more stuff on the back of the album, but as you look at it, you can also see that it is the exact same as Andy Griffith Shouts the Blues and Old Timey Songs It's his album. All they did was replace the top part of that where it said Andy Griffith Shouts the Blues and Old Timey Sons to say music from Mayberry. So that was a really cool thing. Originally, that information came from Paul Mulik. You'll hear him in a little bit when we do trivia. He sent this information to me that I got years ago, because all this information is coming from an episode of the Two Chairs No Waiting that I did on April when was that? April the 22nd, 2014. It was episode number 278. So 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I talked about this, and that album or that episode of the podcast is called Mayberry on Record Reversed. Mayberry on Record Reversed is what it's actually called. And this is why I'm going to go ahead and skip to that part now and tell you that story about it being reversed. So on episode number 277, I had actually mentioned that that I wondered when you listen to that episode when Barney's going to talk into the recorder. Remember when that was happening there at the early part of the episode? I told you to remember that part when Andy and Barney were there in the courthouse, and Mr. Maxwell was going to let Barney record. Okay, so I always wondered what the sound was, because it's got that sound, right? When they rewind that. So back in 2014, a friend of the show here, listener who's since passed away, his name was Mike Peacock. He sent this in because I asked the question, is there anybody out there that's got some really good equipment that would be able to give us information about what it might say there? So here's the response. So check this out and give this a listen.
Thank you, Alan, and hi to everybody tuned into the podcast. Well, you got my curiosity aroused when you talked about Mayberry on Record and rewinding the tape. That rewind sound that sounded like this.
That's me? Rewinding the tape.
Well, here at the radio station where I work, I ran it through my audio program, reversed the cut, and slowed it down many, many times. And it's interesting. You'll hear Andy talking about some things that he said in that episode, and also you'll hear the record producer at the end. Let's take a listen.
I'm glad to come out all earth like Barney. Small local band, bunch of young boys and myself, got the guitars and the banjo and mandolin, fix that anyway. That sounds great.
So Andy starts out by saying, I'll probably come out all us like Barney. And then he proceeds to talk about the local band, some young boys with guitars, banjos, mandolins, and such as that. And then the record producer saying, that sounds great. Let's hear it one more time.
I'm glad to come out all us like Barney. Small local band, bunch of young boys and myself, got the guitars and the banjo and mandolin, fix that anyway. That sounds great.
So there you have it, mystery solved. That's it for now. Everybody have a great week.
So that was from Mike Peacock. And again, that's from 10 years ago when we did this back in April of 2014. So I wanted to bring that back up to you so you would be able to hear that again. So he was able to reverse that sound and play it back forward so we would be able to hear it in the correct order. So they basically just took some information that was right after that, where Barney recorded and then Andy recorded the whole thing or they talked the whole thing about, oh, I'd just be all us and stuff like that too. That's what actually happens in that scene after Barney records. Well, that's what you actually hear them rewind, is that part of something that hadn't even happened yet. So we time traveled during the episode. Anyway, I wanted to make sure you guys heard that. Now, the band playing in this episode is not the Darlings I've mentioned. It is it's a wonderful band called the Country Boys. So the Country Boys, there was several members of that. There was Eric White, Roland White, Clarence White, and Billy Ray Latham, and as I mentioned earlier, Leroy Mack. They evolved into a famous bluegrass group from the Country Boys. They changed their name to the Kentucky Colonels, and Clarence White, the guitar player. There's twins. It was Clarence and Roland. Clarence White went on to be a kind of a bluegrass and country guitarist for other groups and a singer. He actually was a member, of course, of the Kentucky Colonels, but he went on to play for the band The Byrds, just so you know. Odd facts known by few, guys. He's also remembered as being a pioneer of the musical genre of country rock during the late 60s. Well, see, you learn something all the time here on the podcast. Let's see. So the song that the boys were playing for Mr. Maxwell in the barbershop was a bluegrass song named Flop-Eared Mule. And when the group listens to the playback, because they play for Mr. Maxwell, and then it kind of fades from them playing to at some point you see them listening to the recording as they play it back. And that recording, as they go on, they went on to play the song Crawdad Hole. So they sang both songs for Mr. Maxwell, and he recorded them both. All right, so there you go. All right, so let's see. What else we got? Okay, so Ellie is at the soda fountain. Okay, so when she's at the soda fountain, I believe it's maybe when Mr. Maxwell comes in. I'm not sure, honestly, if it's when, it's when Andy's there. When Andy is there, she's standing at the soda fountain, and there's a poster behind her. You can barely see it in the picture I'm showing. Let's see if I can go bigger. There's a picture there that's of diced cream is what it's called. It's ice cream sundae, diced cream. Okay, so diced cream, I never heard of that before. It's a poster. There's a poster there on the wall. Diced cream was a cubed, single-served ice cream product that became popular in the 1940s. And there's a sign for it right over Ellie's shoulder when she and Andy are talking about Mr. Maxwell, and Andy's fixing to get a sundae from Ellie. Okay, so there's there. Speaking of that sundae, the sundae, when Ellie first makes it for Andy, she puts some whipped cream on it. And it's not full of whipped cream. But as time passes and Opie comes in to eat the ice cream, the ice cream suddenly has a lot more whipped cream on it. So I don't know where the whipped cream came from. I'd never noticed that, but that is something that you can watch for. It goes from just having a little bit of whipped cream on the top to the whole thing is covered with whipped cream when Opie comes in. So I don't know. Maybe, I don't know if it was melting during the production of the show and so they just kept having to put more whipped cream to cover that up. I really couldn't tell you. One other thing to notice, I don't know if you can see that either, but there is a TV guide that we've talked about before with Lucille Ball on the cover. It appeared on several episodes of the Andy Griffith Show. You could see. So it's in this particular scene with when Opie walks into the drugstore. You can definitely see it on the countertop there. You can see it in other parts of the series or the episode as well. So it's easy to spot that particular thing. So there you go. There's some odd facts known by a few. That's, I think, all I have for you that I had related to that. I should tell you, like I said, there's more information available about this. If you go to listen to episode number 278, there's also some of the pictures are linked there, and there'll be links in the show notes for being able to go and view the photos I've been talking about of the album covers and all that kind of stuff. You'll be able to see that as well. All right. So I think that is about it for that. I think I've covered it. All right. So I hope everybody enjoyed that. Just little odd facts known by a few and different trivia that you may or may not have ever heard before. So I hope you like that. Hey, I never mentioned this, but if you watch me on YouTube, I would really appreciate it if you could go in and subscribe on YouTube, and you do all the things. You like and subscribe and tickle the bell icon if you're watching the YouTube version of this show, so we can get more and more subscribers. I think we got about 3,800 subscribers. But the more people that can watch, the better. Get the word out more about the Andy Griffith Show. All right, guys, I think that's what I've got for you as far as that goes. Now it's time for us to go and play some Mayberry trivia. If you guys are ready for that, I think I am. So let's go to our trivia music. There we are. All right, now let's see. Okay, we are doing trivia again from Paul Mulik, as I mentioned earlier. He was the one that told me what the name of that album was. Well, Paul also submitted these trivia questions. So if you don't like them, blame Paul. No, I really appreciate Paul taking time to do this. These trivia, like last week, if you listened to last week, the topic will all be sandwiches. Now, they do get harder. So last week's were easier probably than the ones we're going to have this week. But we've got 4 questions this week. 4 questions. Are you ready? I'm going to look at our chat room. See, our chat room is here. They're here. All right. So we are ready to go. So question number 1. Question 1. Who brings a roast beef sandwich on rye to the courthouse for Andy? Who brings a roast beef sandwich on rye to the courthouse for Andy? All right, so there I've asked you the questions. Obviously this is a sandwich. Okay, so who brings a roast beef sandwich on rye to the courthouse for Andy? Now I'll give you a little hint because Paul gave this. It's from the episode Andy and Opie Bachelors. If that's helpful to you. All right, so folks in the chat room, I think there's at least one I see has gotten this correct, and Aunt B is not the right answer, if you guessed that. The answer is Miss Peggy. Peggy brought it. Peggy brought beef sandwich on rye to the courthouse for Andy. All right, question number 2. Question 2. When Goober and Warren go to the diner for a late dinner. Oh, this is hard because it's Warren. Whew. Warren orders a hamburger. What kind of sandwich does Goober order? Oh, all right. So when Goober and Warren go to the diner for a late dinner, Warren orders a hamburger. And what kind of sandwich does Goober order? Now, this is a color episode. It was the episode A Warning from Warren, if that's helpful. And I will tell you, it is a horrible sandwich that I cannot believe anybody would eat. All right. It's almost like the sandwiches. I think we did some last week about Tex Foley. Some of those sandwiches, this would live right up to it. I don't know. There's some writers, I think, that have a problem. All right. So here's the kind of sandwich that Goober ordered. I don't see anybody getting this right. So in A Warning from Warren, Goober ordered a peanut butter and tuna sandwich. Oh my gosh. So write that down because someday somebody may ask you that trivia question and you'll never get it. And remember last week, Opie made peanut butter and sardine, peanut butter and bologna, peanut butter and liverwurst, and just peanut butter for Tex Foley. So the writers have a thing for putting unusual things with peanut butter sandwich. I need to check that out. See if they wrote. I wonder if the same person wrote those episodes. I need to check that out. All right, I'll try to remember to do that. Question number 3, worth 2 points. Okay, so you got 2 answers to this. Someone on the sidewalk offered Opie a sandwich. Someone on the sidewalk offered Opie a sandwich. Who was the person, and what kind of sandwich was it that he was offered? Oh my goodness. All right. Oh, this is a good one. Paul did a good job on this one because he's not going to tell you the episode, he says, because it would give it away. So does that help? Not going to tell you the episode. So someone on the sidewalk offered Opie a sandwich. Who was the person and what kind of sandwich was offered? Oh, this is tricky. Paul is being tricky. I like these kind of trivia questions because it'll be like when I give you the answer, all of you guys are going to go, oh. All right, so here it comes. All right. I'm not going to hold you in suspense. You get 2 points for this, though, if you can get them. One of the chat rooms may have gotten part of this. I see it just popped in there. All right, so this is who it is. Who offered the sandwich? Well, the person who offered the sandwich was Sheldon in Opie and the Bully. Sheldon. And he offered a knuckle sandwich. Sheldon, it was a knuckle sandwich. So I'm going to give James Andy-ish in the chat room. I'll give him a hand because he had knuckle sandwich. That was Sheldon. Good job. Sheldon the Bully. Good job. All right. I didn't get it. Did you get it? Let's see. It's one of those you're like, oh, I should have got this. At least the knuckle sandwich. All right. Let's see. What are we on? 1, 2, 3, 4. Question number 4. I guess we got 5 questions. I can't count today. All right. What visitor to Mayberry is seen stealing sandwiches? What visitor to Mayberry is seen stealing sandwiches? I can't give you the episode on this one either. I don't think I can do that. I think it would make it too easy if you knew the episode it's in. All right. What visitor to Mayberry is seen stealing sandwiches? Oh, okay. Chat room are jumping in. I see them. They're getting it right. Okay, so I'll give you the hint, and then you can say his name because his name is the right answer. You may not know his name. It's from the episode Opie's Hobo Friend. So you got to know his actual name. And his name is Dave Brown. Several people in the chat room got that. Congratulations. Several people. Did you get it? Dave Brown. Tuscarora. Yes, him. Yes, Jed Clampett. No, Jed Clampett is not the right answer. But it is the right actor. I'll give you that. All right. The last sandwich question. Here we go. What kind of sandwich was What kind of sandwich was Goober eating when he caught the biggest old rainbow trout you ever saw? What kind of sandwich was Goober eating when he caught the biggest old rainbow trout you ever saw? Now, this is from the episode Gomer the House Guest. His Gomer was eating it. Did I keep saying Goober? What kind of sandwich was Gomer eating when he caught the biggest old rainbow trout you ever saw? From Gomer and the House Guest. Okay. Oh my goodness. People in the chat room got that. Got it right. Yeah, this is kind of a 2-part thing. It's two things. It's not just a single. It's not like a ham sandwich. It's something and something. It's 2 things. And so if you get it right, that's good. The question, it's Gomer, not Goober. I think I keep saying Goober. I think I'm saying Goober because Goober eats all the time. That's why I'm saying that. I keep thinking Goober's going to eat another sandwich. All right, so this is Gomer. Sorry if I threw you off. What kind of sandwich was he eating? Okay, so the kind he was eating was, again, these writers, they got a whole different palate than I do. He was eating a Limburger cheese and onion sandwich. Limburger cheese and onion sandwich. I see somebody got Limburger. I see that in our chat room. How did you guys do? I don't see anybody that said Limburger and onion. We had some people think it was liverwurst and onions. That's still pretty good, but that was incorrect. It was Limburger cheese and onion. So how did you do? How was it? How did you do? All right. Yeah, those are pretty tough. Those are pretty tough, guys. They really were. So great job to Paul. Thank you so much for those things. Hey, guys, I wanted to, this week's episode, before we get out of here, I wanted to tell you, Mark Ridgway was a executive producer for this episode. And the reason he is is he actually wrote me some music that is unique for the podcast that I'm going to use for segments. I just hadn't figured out how to use them yet, but I want to play them for you. This first one's called Deputy's Revenge that Mark wrote just for us to use here on the podcast. And maybe you guys, after you hear them, you might be able to suggest what good segments I could lead into. So this is Deputy's Revenge. Check this out. I feel like I'm being marched to jail on this one. All right, so that's Deputy's Revenge that Mark wrote just for the podcast. I really appreciate this. And here's his other one. He said it's Such a Friendly Town is the name of this one. So those are, I'm going to be using those for something, one of our lead-ins or something. And I really do appreciate Mark doing that. He sent them to me last week, I think, but I couldn't play them on last week's episode because we had T. Graham Brown here with us, and it just wasn't a good spot for it. So I wanted to play them tonight. I'm still trying to figure out when to put them. I could... I may have to shorten it down a little bit so it won't be quite as long to lead into trivia or something like that. That last one could almost be like you're graduating from school. Anyway, I really do appreciate that. Thank you so much to Mark for taking time to do that and record those. He wrote them and recorded them. They're similar in feel from Mayberry type music, but doesn't break any copyright laws. Plus, he gave me the rights to use his music, and I really do appreciate that. That was really, really cool. So thank you so much. Guys, that is all I have for us tonight. I would love to hear from you. Let me know what you think about Mark's themes and what I could use them for, his music. And thanks again to Paul Mulik for the trivia. I hope you enjoyed kind of the run through. I mean, I'm basically, you're listening to me tell you about a rerun of the Andy Griffith Show. But I hope the odd facts known by a few made it worth your time. There's a lot of links in our show notes. Make sure you go and check those out. Head over to twochairsnowaiting.com to do that. I'd love to hear from you. You can give me a call at 888-684-8415 and let me know what you think. I'd love to hear from you. You can also send it to Floyd at imayberry.com. Guys, have a great week, and we'll see you back here on Two Chairs.